There are so many reasons to remember a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Maybe the card was big in the anime and now it's this icon that people remember, or maybe it's a competitively viable card that you've played against like 100 times, so obviously you'll know its effects. Maybe it's a card that's never seen play but has a funny picture or a funny name, so you remember it for that reason. But because Yu-Gi-Oh has over 10,000 cards, it's pretty much impossible to remember all of them, but personally I've always been interested in pack filler cards, and I don't even really know why. I remember a couple years ago I made that video on ice counter cards, which were a series of cards that were loosely related because they all dealt with ice counters, never really that competitively viable, but they were still interesting to me and I just find them kind of unique. In today's video I want to talk about Crashbugs, and maybe this will be a new series where I cover sort of forgotten archetypes, forgotten cards. Please let me know when the last time that you ever thought of Crashbugs was before watching this video. Obviously now that I'm talking about them, more people are going to remember them, but before watching this video, when was the last time you really thought about any of these 5 cards? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Personally, I remember these cards probably the last time was when I was opening Generation Force packs for the channel. That was kind of funny, you know, looking back at these old cards and saying, oh my gosh, I have not thought about these cards in a very, very long time. There are 5 Crashbug cards, 4 of them are commons, and they never had any reprints outside of their original debut in Generation Force. So if you never opened any Generation Force packs 9 years ago, it's actually entirely possible that you've never ever heard of any of these cards. Crashbug X is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 2,000 defense. One thing I will mention here is that all 3 of the main like starter cards in this archetype all basically have the same effect with a few key changes. Crashbug X, for example, says when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 Crashbug Z from your deck. You must control a face-up Crashbug Y to activate and to resolve this effect. Crashbug Y is also a level 3 Dark Fiend monster, but this time it has 1400 attack and 1600 defense, and it says when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 Crashbug X from your deck. You must control a face-up Crashbug Z to activate and to resolve this effect. Unsurprisingly, Crashbug Z is also a level 3 Dark Fiend monster, but this time it has 0 attack and 1500 defense, and it says when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 Crashbug Y from your deck. You must control a face-up Crashbug X to activate and to resolve this effect. This idea is not super unique even among pack filler cards. We saw it with King's Knight from way back in the day. We saw it with the big, medium, and small piece golem from the Duelist Genesis. So people had already seen these type of effects. They knew their downsides. And yes, with the Crashbugs, the big downside here, besides the fact that you have to normal summon them to trigger their effects, is that you have to specifically have the right pairing of Crashbugs whenever you want to use their effects. So if you have like a Crashbug Z on the board and a Crashbug X in your hand, those basically do nothing. You have to specifically have Crashbug Y on the field if you want Crashbug X to do anything. Now, unlike the Golems or the Knight cards, the payoff here is not a big fusion monster, but rather a really, really bad main deck boss monster, Super Crashbug. This is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense that says cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand in face-up defense position by banishing Crashbug X, Y, and Z from your graveyard. Switch the attack and defense of all face-up attack position monsters on the field. The only decent part about this card, and I really do mean this, is that you can banish the Crashbugs from your graveyard. That might not sound like a lot, but I think this card, I mean, it could have been much worse, right? They could have made it so you have to like banish the cards on your field to summon this thing. That would have been way worse, but besides that, this card is already pretty terrible. As we've seen on plenty of other cards, switching the attack and defense of monsters is not very relevant. It kind of works in dedicated decks like Ojana, Shama, but even then it's not really that big of a deal, and that's obviously not a very competitive deck. With Crashbugs, I mean, especially with this card though, what are you really earning here? I mean, yes, these cards have low attack points and high defense points, but Super Crashbug, they won't even let you special summon it in attack mode. It has to come out in defense position, which is honestly a pretty big joke, because one of the only useful ways that you could potentially use this card would be to special summon it and attack over a monster with 3000 attack. As it stands right now though, you would have to play another card to switch this thing to attack mode, which is just not worth it at all in pretty much any situation. The final card in the Crashbug archetype is Crashbug Road, a quick play spell that says each player can special summon one monster from their hand with the same level as one face-up level 4 or lower monster they control. The hilarious part about Crashbug Road is that it does basically nothing to help out this archetype, because, as we've already covered here, the Crashbugs do not trigger off of special summons. However, even if this card did trigger the Crashbug effects, it would not be very good. It's still a -1 that puts a free monster on your opponent's field. The idea here is that the Crashbugs sort of had another boss monster called number 34 Terabyte that took 3 level 3s to make, and it also could steal a level 4 or lower monster that your opponent controlled, so you would summon the Terabyte and then steal the monster that you gave them with the Crashbug Road. Generation Force, the set that the Crashbugs came out of, did have a lot of pack filler beyond the Crashbugs. I mean, if you guys watched those older videos where I opened Generation Force, almost every single non-holographic card is complete garbage, which is pretty funny to think about because this was the first core set with Xyz summoning, so you would think they would put a lot of good cards in that set. However, many of the archetypes that were found in Generation Force were loosely designed to try to summon Xyz monsters but didn't have any other valuable effects. It turns out that people are not willing to play a bunch of garbage level 3 monsters just to summon rank 3s. They would much rather just play good level 3 monsters and summon rank 3s along the way. It probably goes without saying here, but to make this deck viable, it would take like changing all of their effects in some pretty key ways. So obviously, like, all the Crashbug level 3s would have to trigger off of any type of summon, not just normal summon, and maybe you could find a way to make them summon any Crashbug if they controlled any other Crashbug. That would actually work a little bit better, and Super Crashbug would have to be able to be summoned in attack position, and Crashbug Road would just have to be completely changed because the card is completely terrible. But even after all that, and even back in 2011 when these cards were first released, they would not have been that good, and that does go to show here that just on a base level, the Crashbug idea does not work in competitive or even casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Before I end the video, I just want to remind you guys to please comment the last time that you remembered Crashbugs before watching this discussion. I'm really curious to see how many people have even heard of this archetype at all, let alone the last time that they actually thought about it. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.